I like to start out with a bold statement, okay? So I think that in a few years, the kind of technology that we're working on is going to become increasingly important for the way that we all manage our own health. This list that you see up here, this is the stuff that killed us a century ago. One thing you'll notice on this list right here is that most of the things that killed us quickly. So if we progress over what's happened over the last 100 or 110 years, we go from 1900 to 2010 here, many things drop off of that list. A number of other things get added onto it. But I think one of the big changes that you'll see here is the things that I've highlighted in red are chronic conditions. Many of us are living with these chronic conditions every day. You know, in the US, almost half of us are managing at least one chronic condition every day. The upside, however, is aging. So this is percentage of people over 65 around the US. Just over the last decade, you can see a significant increase. Broadly, what all of these have in common, the negative and the positive, are there are a lot of things that we have to do to manage our health now that we're expected to do on our own that we wouldn't have done before. And so the big trend, and what a lot of us are here, you know, in these kinds of gatherings and working on in our daily lives, is, you know, this mobile connected health. But for me, the big picture and the things that are changing are the mobile devices that we have in particular, you know, these smartphones. So obviously this is a very new kind of technology. So the pace of change is really picking up. In 2001, this area of social robots was very new. There'd been a few of them built. There'd been some observational studies done, but we didn't know a lot about what was happening. So I set out and ended up spending about 2 years running a series of studies trying to understand the psychology of this interaction. What happens when we interact with a physical robot? How is that the same or different than interacting with another person? Or mostly, how is that the same or different from interacting with something on a screen? And again, this was not about the technology, although obviously there was technology involved in building and programming these robots. It was about the psychology. And we saw two things that were very interesting. So one has to do with engagement. Okay, we as people, we as humans, are more drawn into interacting with something that's physically in front of us as opposed to a virtual character on the screen, even though it might look exactly the same and be capable of the same conversational interaction. So from there, what I started looking at are, you know, what are the healthcare applications of this? And the broad area where this is applicable is that of behavior change. Behavior change is about, you know, convincing me to do something, and then more importantly, getting me to stick with it over time. And those were the two advantages we saw in something with this kind of a form factor over something with this kind of a form factor. Robotically, what we have is relatively straightforward, okay? So much like that when the head and the eyes move, you can see she's looking around. It's designed for one-on-one interaction. So typically, I would be standing in front of her, and you can see she turns towards me, all right? So she finds my face and makes eye contact. And then she'll talk to me. So let's start her off here.
Good morning. I'm ready to work with you so that you'll meet your goals for the day.
So what's going to happen is she's going to go on from here and just ask some information, like I talked about, you know, eating, exercise, weight. You know, if I have other devices connected to her, she'll get the information that way. Like I said, we're starting with things like the Fitbit or the Withings connected scale, and then give some feedback, advice, maybe a little more small talk. You know, hey, thanks for coming. Come talk to me tomorrow. Goodbye. So any one conversation is 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how much information I want to give her and how much feedback I want to get. But it's about how those conversations change over time. And so as we're looking at the changing mobile and connected health space, I think there's a lot of room for this kind of technology in that space. You know, one area I've done a lot of work in the last 15 years is technology for an elderly population. And I think that's one place where something like this really excels, in that there's a lot of AI and technology behind this, but the setup process, the technical process as a user, is plug it in and hit the power button, and everything else is through conversation. Right? Very simple to use. And so I think there's a lot of power in using this kind of technology and how we can connect it with our other healthcare devices, whether they be standalone devices, you know, other parts of the healthcare system, mobile apps on our phones and tablets, or even connecting back to our doctor, which is something that this will be doing in the near future.